We're continuing with the second movement of the Prokofiev Sixth Sonata, and I had reached, I'm about to, okay, about to sneeze on camera, just goes to show. Anything can happen. This is real life after all. Please pardon me. We were doing the chromatic thingies at measure 24, 25, 26 in the right hand. The left hand has a simple chromatic after a while. The right hand, let's okay, I see my fingering is still there. In other words, most of the time it's 1, 2, 3, and there's occasionally a 5 involved. Well, let's see how we got to it. Okay, so I'm on fourth finger. I'll get to fifth, because it's right there. No big deal. Okay, so let's see. Go with 4, but since Prokofiev breaks the slur line, he's not particularly asking for a legato in the left hand. In fact, he's not asking for a legato at all. I could go to 5 and be a little more comfortable, making it minutely easier to hold on to the quarter note. Standard chromatic fingering once I can, which is to put fourth finger on the G sharp, be able to play 4, 3, 2, 1. No, that makes no sense at all because I've got to get to C. I take it back. Okay, let's assume I start on 5. Actually, I misrepresented the scale fingering I use. I put fourth finger on F sharp. What happens in the standard tricky, what I call fast but not power fingering, is I tend to put second finger on G sharp, regardless of what hand, and fourth finger on the outer black note. Whereas the standard 1, 3, 1, 3, 3 on all the black notes is more of a power fingering. It's not quite as fast because there's one more hand group, but it's stronger. So, I'm going to play fifth finger at the bottom of this left hand scale. And it all fits. Now, having done that, let's see how it fits with the right hand. I was on fourth finger, I believe. One of those bad page turns. I'm not going to devote more time to that now because I want to go on and because I've obviously got a fingering that will work all the time. So. Here, it's a fingering issue. The hands are rather close together. At least currently, the way Prokofiev has divided them, they're interfering with one another. Something it's going to have to be able to do, which is to leap down from E, B to G, E. So the easiest way would be to be going 1, 2 to 2, 5. If that's too big, then 1, 3 to 2, 5, or even 1, 5. But for me, 1, 2 to 2, 5 seems logical, which means in turn I move away. 2, again, I rather assume that rather than putting a thumb on the bottom, when you have hands interfering with one another, a thumb will commit you more into the keyboard. So, especially if they're both thumbs, they'll tend to be more interference. If I were looking for an ultimate fingering that doesn't interfere at all, I might do 2 in both hands, and then there'll be so much more motion in the left hand. Or I could go, well, that's what I ended up doing. Go figure. All right, all is well. All right. Well, with a whole bunch of C major chords in the right hand is not going to be distracting. That's a good thing. And there's limited choice in the fingering here. At least for me. You want to go to thumb on the top of the arpeggio. And then I can shift. Shift my hand over so that ultimately I have 5th on G flat, and I can grab hold of that chord with all 5 fingers. So all 5 fingers here, shift, and all 5 fingers here. That's kind of nice. Okay, measure 28, 29, 30, 31. That involves reminding myself I need a transition finger. So I go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, then 3, 5, simplified, and then open back up to 4. Sounds like right out of Romeo and Juliet. Second finger on this little turn in 33. Just the right number of fingers. Whoops. It would get me to the top. Alright. Yeah, that'll work. 4th. Okay, I will put a thumb on the black note here because it gets me where I need to go. Right hand, meanwhile, most of that time was playing C major. So, goes up. Right at the end, it's whole tone. Not all the way. It sounds as if it's going to be C major. Then he throws in G sharp, F sharp, and then smooths it out. And of course, when he gets to C major at the bottom, he throws in a little juicy B. So. Okay, that needs fingering choices because I could be very slapdash and I'm awful close to being accurate, but I want my body to respond to sort of a sense of inevitability about the passage. Certainly going to 4 on C sharp minor. That's good. And then pairing the next 2 chords. So 5 goes to 4. That's a nice pairing. And then I think 5 to 4 again. So these 3 belong together. I always look for when there is greater motion. Like in this case, there's 8th notes. So the lesser amount of time requires a more simplified gesture or a more linked gesture. So I have to test that that's easy for me. Then there's time with the quarter notes to shift. So all is well. Nice. So now now the right hand is starting, instead of being the more complicated hand, is starting to be the more automatic hand. B minor, I gotta remember that. B minor. Now, it's not just that it's B minor. I mean, harmonically that could be meaningful. But physically, with the black note at the bottom, it turns my hand. So I feel what B minor is, the topography of B minor. And that makes it familiar even when I'm staring at you. So that's good for when I'm playing hands together. In my hand. So I have to be aware. And I'm going to mark that my fingering groups the first three notes together. What I am often remarking to people, this is notated as quarter, quarter, dotted eighth, 16th, quarter. So even though the third note is written as a shorter duration, it takes just as much time to get to it. So the gesture is a quarter note gesture, in other words. Then I move a little lesser amount of time here, and I do not want a fancy fingering between C sharp and G. Nice tritone fingering, 4-2, 2-5. Or, even better, in fact, what I was saying out loud didn't jive with my reality. In other words, I have a lesser amount of time from A sharp, which is just a dotted eighth, to get to C sharp. So a fingering that accommodates all three of those notes is that much better. So I get to G sharp, D sharp, and then I only have to change position once. So change, but then the third finger is an essential part of my message because that gets me C sharp. If I thought maybe two, I'm much more likely to play something like D sharp, and very unlikely to play C sharp without thinking about it a lot and stretching. Whereas for me, the third is right there. So switch, whoop, maybe two. There we go. Switch. All right, now here is one of the weirdest, most problematical sections of the piece. Prokofiev in the left hand has these ridiculous, my turn, C major arpeggios, 2 octaves apart. They're linked with quintuplets and slurs, so it's 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. So you try as hard as you can to link this. Obviously the slur will not happen from your hand, you can't reach it. It'll happen with the help of pedal if you choose to do that. But mostly it's an interpretive issue. To what extent are you going to come closer to playing 5 even notes? 1, 2, 1, da-da-da. Is it going to be da-da-da, ba-da-dum, da-da-da, da-da-dum? If I play slowly enough, of course, yappo, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, and it brings up a fingering issue as well. Am I going to play 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3? Am I going to play 1, 2, 3, 5, 1, 3, 5? I'm going to play some mixture thereof. 1, 2, 4, 1, 3, 5. It's also pianissimo. It's just an accompaniment. So let me add the pedal. I rather suspect that a fingering that can draw me out of the keyboard and back into the keyboard will be best, because it'll give a curved gesture. Part of the issue is really that what is notated is at any reasonable tempo impossible to execute. There is a tempo at which you could have 5 even notes rhythmic. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1. expressive gesture, but there's going to be a little staggering, a little stutter step in the middle. And you get used to the fact that that little stutter step is going to be a part of the reality of your quintet. Quintuplet, excuse me. Too much Schumann on the brain. Okay, right now I'm doing 1, 2, 3 on top, because more of my hand is then free at the bottom. And I can do 1, 2, 3 for now. And 1, 2, 5. Current. I may end up with something weirder by far. I'm experimenting with 2, 3, 5 twice. I don't get enough grab. Again, this is one of those things where if you're a student trying to do well, you come across these kinds of situations that basically provide you with an impossible task. And if you try too dutifully to meet this impossible task with a realistic result, it's going to be endlessly frustrating. So it's one of those situations where you have to note the non-literal nature of much notation. It's giving you an effect rather than a reality. So you have to know how to make it sound comfortable and bound together so that it more or less feels like a quintuplet. If we were to go crazy with notating exactly how you might execute it, it would be so complicated looking, just like most note durations. Okay, so let's look at the right hand. Well, the left hand is going to be doing this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4.5 measures worth. 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay. And the right hand will be playing melodically in chords. 5, 1. Okay, an octave displacement. Oh. It's interesting, if I'm just reading the top notes to get the melody, sometimes they're piled on top of very tall chords. They're much harder to read because I'm just reading those ledger lines, whereas were I to play the chords that support them, the notes would be much easier to find because so often you're not exactly reading the note itself, you're reading the relationship. So here I have a pile of thirds, for example, and thirds. Here I have a second at the bottom and thirds. So the chord actually tells me the key. Let me go back and play that chord-wise. Whoops. Okay, here's one. A counterintuitive one. It doesn't fall naturally under the hand. It's C major second inversion with an F sharp. So for me, I have two choices. I could go 1, 2, 5, or I could do 2, 1, 5, which actually feels much better, and that changed order of fingering is often something that is very beneficial for looking for chords that feel right for your hand. If your hand is turned right, a 2-1 is not a twisted or crossed over fingering. If my hand is turned this way with my elbow towards the right, then 2 and 1 actually come awfully close to being placed just the way they grow on your hand. So that's a comfortable grab. Okay, so we have, that's interesting to note. I get back to C often. He clarifies his added note textures, and then I have that. Same issue here. Again, I have C major with an added note. It's much easier for me, especially when I'm grabbing quickly, to grab with 2-1 rather than 1-2. 1-2 is just a hand compressor, requires more aim. I can be flamboyant in this gesture, that's a sure giveaway that it's going to work better that way because there's no thought in it. I can just slap down my hand and there's the chord. So, just trying to be careful here, especially because we have in measure 39, last quarter note, one of those hovery accidentals. It hovers in air and it points to one of two notes in a second. And it's properly aligned as a D sharp, makes perfect sense. We had it. And there's the melody. Okay, so it's not that I don't know that, but I'm going to write D sharp for positive reinforcement. So when I come back through, there won't be any doubt. Okay, here he's getting harmonic, enharmonically curious. Okay, we have here a G chord, and we have a chord spelled G sharp. This is in measure 40. G sharp, D flat, G flat, B flat. So it looks mostly like a F sharp major with a G sharp added. But it's spelled as a G flat chord. A G flat major chord with a G sharp. That certainly adds a measure of complexity. Or it shows that the G flat is really the added note. That's what keeps it. We're going from G to G flat. That's parallel. Plus we add the G sharp. So from a physical perspective, the hand compresses a bit. It shrinks from its biggest major sixth here down to a major, from a major 10th down to a major 9th. And it also goes from white to black. So that's it's too bad that B, the pitch, and B for black can get confused. So I always write BL for black and W for white to indicate this whole chord is white notes, this whole chord is black notes. I'm sure there are other shorthands you can use. This is a little difficult to read, or said another way, to predict, because of the added notes. I mean, for example, F major plus the G added, D minor chord and an E chord, that's easy enough. Okay, here we have an augmented chord, plus a minor third. Some of you will have an easy name for that, going to A minor 7th. Simple A minor 7 again in a different inversion. Okay, and again, the sense of small to large becomes significant. That the hand opens up. I've been playing almost exclusively 1, 2, 4, 5s here. Here's a 3 because it's a root position chord. Here I'm using 4 again, 4. Here some people would use 4, 3, but I'm using 4 again. It's just more comfortable for my hand. Yeah, I'm using 3 only on the E major. Okay, now another problem I'm noting is the isolation of each of these chords. And my hand has to find a new place for each single quarter note. So I'm doing too much of grabbing these individual events. I want to play them a little longer right now to be able to settle into a sense of the choreography. For example, this going to this going to this, cross, to here, and here, and here. Okay, I'm going to group them that way. Oops. Wouldn't you know it? Without listening to myself, I grouped them the wrong way. So, go to here, and here, and here. That's really useful. Now here, then this. Great. Back of the range. 3 when we finally get triplets instead of quintuplets. So we have 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 4, 5. I want a fingering that gets me to the end comfortably. So I'm willing to shift. I have a simple 4-note arpeggio. I'm just going to find a fingering for a 2-note transition between the second inversion G and then the root position G. I tend to, for root positions, use 4th finger a lot. 1, 2, 4, 5. So 1, 2, 3, 5. 1, 2, 1, 2, 4, 5. That's good. The left hand is in no way difficult to learn the notes of, but that's where almost all of my, certainly visual attention is going to go, because of all those leaps, and because most of those leaps happen to be white note to white note as well, without even any black notes to help tell me where I am. So that means I'm going to need to know the right hand way beyond reading level. So, for example, and of course, when I play it more slowly like this, the inexactness of the left hand becomes more apparent, and it's actually much harder to place those notes in the right places, roughly a fifth of the quarter note apart. So, what I'll do instead is to practice with the quintuplets guiding my sense of gesture. So that will link even more the 2s in the right hand, because the right hand's linkages will be determined by the left hand. So it goes and 2, and 2, and 2, and 2, and 2. May as well circle where for the first time it's not so major. Either F. And crossed hand issue. Fun to play. Now I have to find out if it works with my left hand. Yeah. So 5-4 in the right hand to start for the first hand group, and again for the second hand group, which will be another octave worth. And then 3, going to 5-2-1. By using 3 going to 2, I have a nice fluid gesture in which my arm turns my hand slightly to favor the thumb, get me into G minor. So I have this to here. Very nice. Now, that's the one thing my left hand has to do, is turn early. Again. Stopping where the left hand turns and then is fine yet. So this is the kind of passage where I know what I'm going to be doing, but it's really not working at all well. It's going to take memorizing. I can't see any, short of that, I can play a bunch of one-beat groups. F. 5, 1. F. Whoops. I haven't worked out a fingering, so I think 1, 2, 4 rather than 1, 2, 3. And then 1, 3, 5 as before. 1, 2, 3. I said 1, 2, 1, 2, 4, 5 in the right hand, and I've got to follow suit. Okay, you can see that without knowing where I'm going, or knowing where I'm going, the two quarter groups are showing promise. 5, 1. I'm going to write this as E minor in case I missed it. I think I missed it before because I have no recollection of playing it. E minor, telling myself it's E minor, is all I need to make that adjustment. F, may as well write F. The F was more apparent to me, interestingly. I'm going to go back. E minor. Okay. It even makes sense. E major. Okay, so it seems to me that that's in large measure how I'm going to be learning this passage. I am going on, even though that's somewhat unsatisfactory, because I really have plotted out my course vision of how this is going to go, and I'm curious to see what happens later. We're still in the same section. He's not finished this figuration, but we are back to the left-hand arpeggio. So I want to compare that with the first time. And it's so typical of Prokofiev, the intervallic relationship between different statements of the same material isn't guaranteed to be at the fifth or the fourth. In this case, well, it is a fourth away. Unusual, actually. It's often at the second, which is really conceptually difficult to deal with and physically difficult when your whole hand is tilted in different ways. So anyway, I used exactly the same fingering as I did before, which was 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then 3, and then 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That's what I just did. Out of curiosity, it didn't work badly. Let's see if there's anything more logical. I could turn my hand over to the black note. Now let me try the 5. It actually, in a way, I don't like that I'm choosing the more comfortable fingering, because it means that I'm going to learn a different fingering. But maybe that's a good thing. See how easy that is. The black and white arrangements is very comfortable in my hand. I avoid the fourth entirely. See, I know it. The body wins in this case, okay? My mind said, please be consistent, O fingering, and my body said, but I'm going to give you a much easier result, so just put up with it, buddy. Okay. And this buddy will. Let's see. A bunch of G minors. Oh no. G minor for only a little bit, then it transforms. Okay, easy enough. 3, 4, 4, 4, 5, 46. At 46, which happens to be in this second volume, Boosey and Hawkes, page 21. Obviously another page in another edition. Okay, so Prokofiev asks for a lot of held notes. First the D on top, then the B on top. So there is only one way to play the middle voice, and it's 1 to 1. So it's second inversion, second inversion, second inversion. I could do all 1, 2, 4, 5s, or I could do 1, 2, 3, 5 on the second to last one. Certainly I want a parallel fingering for the two all white note ones. The 3 ever so slightly signals this B minor for me. And there, and we are back again. G sharp minor because it's easy to toss to, and then link this with this. That would be 5-3, going to 4-2, 1 implied, and then 5-5. Not a whole lot of choice. So it took me a little bit of negotiating with myself, sort of saying, "Hey, what finger are you using to play third finger?" So I'm still a little suspicious. If it requires too much thought, I'll go back to 4. And here we have this whole tone descending scale again. Alas, the bottom of the hand is not doing so. It's leaving much more. So that's where my awareness has to shift. Left hand, which just did, is so comfortably it needs to shift fingering. I'm just going to notate. Second finger on this turn gets me a 5th on the bottom. That's what I need to know. And interesting, the 5-1 to G is a fake 5. Well, it's a raised 5. It's D sharp to G instead of one decision has to be made here. I'm going to be thumb on top. I can just have those 3 notes linked together. That's perfectly fine. Because there's no great advantage to turning to the thumb because I'm playing octave anyway, so my whole hand is going to be delivered to the keyboard. And because it's a black note octave, my arm will be particularly happy to deliver my hand to the keyboard inwards. That's good. So no particular issues there. We'll go back. Shift. So, although I don't really have choice, I'm going to notate it for safety, shall we call it. Shift. Switch finger, in other words. It's a little decision, but I haven't made it, so One, for two reasons. One is it opens the hand up to get ready for 2 on D. 2 is even more significant. By going to the thumb, my arm tosses my hand into the G, so I don't have to worry about articulating the G with my finger. My arm articulates my hand, as it were. That little thrust forward goes to here, sets it all up. So that's really nice. And I found myself playing 4th finger in the right hand, which I find as close to a knee slapper as we get in this business. Nah, we have many knee slappers. You ever notice that people don't really slap their knees? That hurts when it's a knee slapper. It's really just above the knee slapper. Yeah, you know, some bemusement. I'm going to play 5/4 each one. I did not notate my simple chordal fingering perfect fourths 1, 2, 5, and because I didn't notate it, I wasn't sure what I was going to do. F sharp, please. Finding the F sharp more automatic. Rotating twice to the thumb. Boy, that's easy too. Okay. I don't want to call what I'm doing indecisive because I'm trying to keep my mind open to what my body tells me is easy. And sometimes my body simply starts to do things automatically, and my mind needs to notice that rather than trying to insist that it has a smart fingering that just happens not to work. If it happens not to work or happens to be undependable or whatever, then it's not a smart fingering, no matter how smart I thought I was when I thought it up. So, be humble. I repeat my rule of thumb. The body has a mind of its own. Or said another way that I've put in writing as well, the body is like a passive-aggressive child. It won't do what it doesn't really want to do. So don't order it about. Find out how it'll play along. Whoops. Feel that. It's a perfectly good idiomatic grouping. If I can remind myself, there it is. Okay, back to, alas, this thing. G, 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 G. C, G. And this time I'm notating, just trying to make sure I don't miss anything. Okay, B minor. C. Oh, A minor. B major. G on the top and D on the bottom. B flat on the top and D on the bottom. He's funny. Okay. G. Even though I know what I'm playing, it doesn't mean I can play it. I'm finding myself doing a lot of 1, 2, 4. Last time I notated a lot of 1, 2, 5. Excuse me, 1, 2, 3. So I've got to find out what's going on here. You know, once again, there's a certain smart in my hand. The 4 keeps the spacing better. In other words, even though the third is longer and would get me out further and make the toss a little bit easier, the fact that there's that ever so slight strain between 2 and 3 over the distance of a third means my body just preferred the passivity and ease of going 1, 2, 4, where 2 and 4 are perfectly spaced. Now that's the theory behind what I discovered. What's more important is it doesn't matter what the explanation is. It matters that it seems to my body to be easier to play 1, 2, 4. And I allow it to be a mystery if necessary. So G, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then, similarly speaking, if I could do 1, 2, 4 on C major second inversion, but there's that little bit of strain. So I think I'm going to stick with 1, 2, 5 twice. And then, okay, this tilted B minor is too bad. Okay, I'm getting very interesting. No, not a chance. I might do 1, 2, 4 twice. I was trying to find a convenient way of getting to second finger on F sharp, but then there's no convenient and strong way of getting the last 2 notes. If it were D sharp, I might consider that because my hand would comfortably land on those keys. Because it's a D natural, it's not going to happen. So I might just end up with 1, 2, 4, 1, 2, 4, which is slightly ungainly. But too bad. Because the passage is slightly ungainly. What can I say? So the first inversion is either going to be 1, 3, 5, 1, 3, 5, or it's going to be 1, 2, 4, 1, 3, 5. For now, I'm going to stick with 1, 3, 5, again, in the interest of a more passive hand. Here we do have a B major. It goes to B minor. That's interesting. B and then B minor. So here I might actually start on, let's see. On 2 for the first time. Just to grab the black note, to be comfortable here, and then 1, 3, 5 at the bottom. So I'm going to go 1, 3, 5, 1, 3, 5, 1, 2, 1, 3, 5, 1, 2, 4, 1, 3, 5. 1, 2, 4, 1, 3, 5 seems to be. Yeah. Okay. For now, I've got something. Got something on paper. I've committed to something that seems reasonable. Don't know if it will work in context, but at least it's a start. Meanwhile, okay, same fingering issue. I have a black-white combination, and I'm going to play 2-1 instead of 1-2. It will be interesting to me to see if he's also chosen this particular key because of its physical relationship to what came before. So I'm going to do a little bit of comparison testing. There's a black note, all whites. Well, initially this is exactly so. Second finger black note, second finger black note, white notes, turn. That is really interesting. Black note, 1, 2. Again, I'm not embarrassed by the redundancy. I want to know for sure. Black note. Okay, now if I compare what I had initially in measure 39, and I should for reference count these, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56. Boy, these measures go by quickly. 60. Okay, I had this, in measure 39 I had black note on the bottom, black note on the top, and I go 2, 1, 4, 5. And here I have, amazing, Okay, so dare I go out on a limb and say that Prokofiev partly chose this key because it felt the same way. I don't know. It's kind of interesting. Because so far, every one of these chords, now he's changing the rhythm and he's going to do different stuff, but, and this was an all black note, black chord before, but up to this point, that's a lot of chords that feel almost exactly the same way. That's pretty cool. It makes it easier for us, the learners, to feel some sense that what we did before will continue. We can reap some more rewards. Okay. Here's the rhythm. Now again, I'm not going to look for a fingering where I don't have to turn my hand over. I want, because this is a 16th note motion, I want sheer comfort. So I'm going to go from 5-3-1 to 4-2-1. Each of those is, for me, the optimal fingering for that particular chord. When that's the case, more often than not, if your arm is free, you can toss your hand comfortably at tempo anywhere on the keyboard because it's going to receive the demand you place on it with a sense of ease because each one is comfortable. So it doesn't, you're not looking for proximity. In other words, you're not looking for the finger that might be closest. You could go 1-2-4, 1-2-4-5 or something. That wouldn't ever work as quickly as this. I often will sit with a student back to back and say, okay, shake my hand, just to prove that proximity doesn't guarantee ease. In other words, we're not built for reaching around our backs and shaking hands. Our arms work mostly efficiently in front of our bodies. So shaking hands this way or addressing the keyboard this way is comfortable. Similarly speaking, you can reach for things on the keyboard that are close, but often those are seductively, tantalizingly easier looking than they actually are. This is very easy to execute. I'm going from 5 to 4 to the right of it, which would seem not to be sensible, but of course we know that it is sensible because our bodies tell us so. Now, this is the one thing that was all black when it originally appeared. So this is the combination of this little doohickey, this rhythmic doohickey that's new, and this D flat chord with added D sharp. A lot of these. You know, I'm going to look, yes, a little further. White notes, white notes. Okay, so here we have B major, which anything B or B flat will always feel exceptional when compared with other things. So feels actually even more comfortable than D major because of the presence of the two long-fingered black notes. And then, just as before, the tilted chord. Okay, so it's mostly very nicely similar, and in some cases, physically the same. 5-1. Here we go. And this is a smaller chord than you might think. All right, this is good. I'm getting somewhere. Again, I'm going to practice in the groups. I can always, I know I have to look down to have some kind of possibility of success in playing accurately in the left hand. So I'll look down for every arpeggio for now. And later on, when I have it all from memory, I'll look down again. So I'll never stop looking down. Okay, I need the chord, the rather dramatic turn of the hand needs to become familiar to me. Yes, like that. And then the surprising second inversion C major, aided by the fact that I have two root position right hand chords. So the hand position kind of allows me to mind my own business and concentrate on the left hand. 5, twist E. Okay, B minor. supposedly 4 against 5. In other words, there's a 16th note at the end, and there's 5 of these. It's going to be however you feel the half beat. In other words, 1, 2, and I'm going to emphasize the snappiness of the right hand rhythm, which is much more significant than the continuing slightly uneven left hand, which is almost by definition slightly uneven. So you have a certain learning forgiveness built into it. C major, E minor. I'm glad for the notation. I'm missing the A. So I should have been looking at it earlier. There's no reason to be looking up here when I can be looking at my target note. So this is the one that starts on the second, I think. Yeah, that actually worked. Now, obviously that's not anywhere near great, but again, I'm fleshing out the strategies. I know how I'm going to practice it. I've actually made major advances in determining what are probably my fingerings, figuring out the notes, figuring out some parallel relationships between this and the preceding passage. So this should be, for me, a sense of accomplishment. And yes, I've just given myself the ultimate trophy. I've patted myself on the head. So, okay, fingering. I was not surprised to discover that the turn fingering I used, not the first version when I used, well, you know what? Okay, this amuses me because now I'm referencing this back to the first one. The first one, I used 2-hand position. I used 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 twice. Well, actually, I used one transition finger and opened my hand up. The second one, I turned my hand over 5, 3, 2, 1, which is very comfortable. The third one, I'm going to do roughly what I did the first one. I think there may be one slight change that fourth finger for my hand feels better on F, the second note. So I might do that. But now what leaves me curious is if I use my second fingering on the first one. So in spite of the fact that there are many black notes, the question for me is, would consistency in reverse, in other words, finding what I did later and applying it to what I did earlier, would that work? Let me remind myself what I did. Turn to 2, 1, 3, 1, 2, 3. So. Say it's written specifically to be fortissimo in the left hand there. In other words, Prokofiev is going out of his way to highlight primacy of that melodic line. And my second fingering, which avoids all those 5/4 things, tends to work better. So 3-1. How about that? I can't say I'm thrilled. I'm neither thrilled. I'm just. It's one of those things that makes you shake your head and say, "Aha, interesting." It's part of the learning process, and for me, it's nice to keep my mind open to those kinds of possibilities because really, in spite of the fact that I'm negotiating my way through a bunch of black notes, the grippiness of it and the power behind it really makes a difference. So, is to commit to just making D major in the right hand, diminished chord in the left hand, half diminished. Okay, so now we're doing different stuff. I need to know where I'm going, because I need to figure out a fingering that will get me from one page to the next. 70, 89, 60. Oh, already done. Okay, I'm going to shift. I've been playing standard root position fingering 1, 3, 5. On the second quarter of 57, 58, 59, I'm going to shift to 2, 1 from 3, 5. 2 from 1, 3. That will give me fourth finger on A sharp, which is comfortable and leads me forward to the turn. So starts off as a diminished chord, then we get a major on top, half diminished at this point. This is one of those things that a number of fingerings will work. I can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm unlikely to just stick with 5, 4, 3. There's no advantage to that. I can go coming down and go 5, 3, 2, and then back to 1 on E sharp. Seems good. Or 5, 3, 1. I have a slight preference for tuning on 2 because it makes the going to the B sharp with the thumb later on that much more significant a physical shift. So I've decided on 5, 3 to get me down there. 5, 3, 2 to make my page behave. A point about page behavior. This is particularly true when you're playing chamber music. It's so easy to just let the fact that paper has memory frustrate you. In other words, pages will want to flip back, and sooner or later you have to brutalize the binding to make sure it behaves well enough to not interfere with your sense of well-being. It's as simple as that. It's like sharpening your pencils. I very often find myself with pencils that are unsharp. I was given this particular lovely Pentel. This is not a commercial or an ad or anything, but mechanical pencils that work well, that advance well, that are easy to reload, are a great boon to musicians. You want to have a pencil that's always sharp, and this stays sharp. And this eraser, I don't even know who makes this eraser, but that's a boon too, because the erasers on most pencils are lousy. And it's just a practical issue. You need to be able to, as a musician, you need to be able to change your mind. You need to be able to try different things out and say, no, that one didn't work. So anyway, the significance of pencils in the lives of musicians. I was trying to think up a pun about carbon and carbon copies, but most of you don't know what a carbon copy is, so. And besides, I'm not copying, I'm changing my mind. I may as well make up my mind about the fingering here. Okay, so for now, my tosses upward are going to be started by a second finger. My tosses downward are going to be started by a third finger. So 2, 1, 3, same G sharp, different finger to set up what's there. I could go to 4, but third, the longest finger, is just there more quickly. Too far because I have still stuff to investigate. I have I'm very glad in this case that my body is responding consistently, because for a change, Prokofiev is repeating himself. So just proceeding on D is the first time I went to 4. Not because I thought about it, but because my hand, when it plunked down, went to 4. Okay, excellent. Issues. Okay, he's got a whole note written in the bass. Quarter notes. This will be 2 plus 2, 1, 2, going to 2, 5. But what am I going to do in measure who knows what? 61, 2, 3, 4. 65, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, measure 69. He says, play a whole note, please. Let me see if a sostenuto would work. Here's one of the problems. Sostenuto works fine if I do it right away in the left hand. In other words, play the B with the rest of the E major chord, let go of the top, as is written, put down the sostenuto. Easy. The right hand, however, has a dotted quarter, so it's going to sit a little longer. I have to test if it's possible. In other words, is there a place where nothing else has to hold on? The left hand actually, ostensibly, is holding on just as long. No. Now the left hand reiterates itself, its note, before the right hand goes on. And depending on how short or how long my quarter notes are, if I'm playing them really long, experimenting like this is, I have to decide whether this pedaling is worth it. In other words, is there a way I can execute this so that the sostenuto pedal actually works to my advantage? And if there is, and I think right now it seems that there is, and it'll come in after I let go of my second left hand quarter. So. Then I can practice it. But I have to decide whether it's practical and whether there's any kind of artistic payoff. Do I like the clarity of that texture? And I happen to in this case. So that's what I'm going to try. Okay, and on we go. Octaves now we have 7, so we've had all these octaves. Now we have shrinking 7th, 7th. Of notes I have to play at 69, 72, 172, 73, I have one third finger there. Good. What I might do is something a little bizarre. 5, 4, 2, 3. Instead of going back 5, 4, 3, 4, 5, 4, 3, which simple. I can go 5-4-2 so that I assign one finger to each key. It makes for a slightly bigger motion, slightly weirder. On the end, when it doesn't reverse, I think I might just do 3 instead. So 5-4-2, 3-5-4, 5-4-3, 2-2. Okay, that works. Stays tied. The top note has always been tied, or held rather. Okay, so I have to be careful that this note, I'm not misled by the notation. Then 3 for the next 3 chromatics, and 2. I didn't quite hold it that long. Enough. 1, 2. This is good, okay. Work out the mechanics in my head of what lets go and what I think about. So that's what I'm doing right now. So the right hand's going to repeat itself and then hold its outer notes. Okay, we have a key change now, and I'm worried about running out of space on my SD card, so I'm going to stop now and take a break.